During a family dispute over land, my grandfather snapped, "She's the kind you marry off, not the kind you follow." I smiled through tears. 70 years later, when I stood alone on that land, watching the last of their descendants leave in silence, I rebuilt not a mansion, but a monument, one that carried only the names of those who dared to dream beyond the limits they tried to set for me. I grew up in Cedar Ridge, Tennessee. It wasn't even a real town. Just a speck on the map where everyone knew everyone else's business, and made sure you knew your place too. My name is Martha Jane Holloway. I was born in 1952, back when girls were expected to be quiet, pretty, and grateful. In my family, land was everything. It was the pride, the power, and the prison. My grandfather, Richard Holloway Sr., ruled the land and the family. He had over 1,000 acres, rich, green fields, thick woods, creeks filled with catfish. You could walk for a day and still be on Holloway soil. He made sure we knew it. He didn't have sons who lasted. They either died young, ran off, or drank themselves useless. Only my mother, Mary Alice, stayed. She married a man grandfather picked, my father, a tired man who died before I even turned 12. I barely remember him. In our house, dreams were laughed at, especially for girls. You were supposed to marry young, push out babies, and make casseroles for church picnics. But Mama, late at night, would sit on the edge of my bed and whisper things no one else dared to say. "Work hard, baby girl. Dream big. Bigger than this farm. Bigger than these fences." I believed her. At least I tried. Everything changed the summer I turned 17. It was hotter than hell that year. The kind of heat where the air sticks to your skin. I spent my days sweating in the fields and my nights filling out college applications when everyone else was asleep. When I got the letter from the University of North Carolina, full scholarship, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could escape. I waited for Sunday dinner to tell them. That's when the whole family would be there: grandfather, my aunts and uncles, all the cousins. The dining room was packed. Grandfather at the head of the table, chewing a cigar more than smoking it. The rest of us shoved into rickety chairs. Mama had made fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and biscuits. The smell filled the house. I stood up, heart pounding so hard I thought I might faint. I said it plain. I got a scholarship. I'm going to study architecture at UNC. Dead silence. Fork stopped halfway to mouths. Grandfather leaned back, narrowed his eyes, took a long drag off that dead cigar. Then he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "She's the kind you marry off, not the kind you follow." The room exploded with laughter. Not just the men. Some of the women too. My aunts covering their mouths, giggling behind their napkins. I smiled. I swear to God I smiled, even though it felt like my face was cracking. I sat back down. I didn't taste a single bite after that. That night, I packed what little I had into a battered suitcase. Mama caught me by the door. She didn't try to stop me. She pressed a folded letter into my hand and slipped a crumpled $100 bill into my pocket. She kissed my forehead and said, voice shaking, "Don't you dare come back here until you've made them choke on every word they said about you." I left before sunrise. Nobody else said goodbye. College was hell. I didn't know how poor I was until I stood next to kids whose parents sent them checks every week. I worked in the cafeteria, cleaned houses on weekends, and tutored rich kids who didn't need the help. Some nights, I slept on library couches because I couldn't afford heat in my apartment. Some nights, I thought about giving up. But then I would remember grandfather's voice, thick with disgust. "She's the kind you marry off, not the kind you follow." And I would get up and keep going. I graduated with honors in 1975. I spent the next 10 years clawing my way up in a field that didn't want women, especially not poor ones from nowhere towns. I built houses at first, then small shops, then bigger things: schools, churches, libraries. By the mid-1980s, I had my own firm, Martha J. Holloway Architect. It was written on office doors, blueprints, hard hats. I never went back to Cedar Ridge. Not when grandfather got sick. Not when he died. Not when Mama passed. The Holloway land was still there, I heard. Broken up, sold off, fought over. I didn't care. I had built my own world. I didn't need theirs. Until 2023. I was 71 years old, half retired, when a man in a cheap suit showed up at my door. "You're the last Holloway," he said, setting down a thick folder. The family's gone. You're the only one left. And by law, the home place belongs to you. I didn't answer him right away. I just stared out my window at the quiet street where my firm used to be. I thought about the girl I was, standing at that long dining room table, choking on hope. 2 months later I went back. The land looked tired. The once proud house was falling apart, porch sagging like old bones. Weeds had swallowed the fields. Rusty equipment lay abandoned under crumbling sheds. But the bones were still good. The land was still strong. Like me, I walked the fields alone. I stood where the dining room used to be. I pressed my hand to the earth, feeling its heartbeat under my palm. And I remembered. Every laugh. Every sneer. Every time they told me I wasn't enough. And I smiled. I didn't rebuild the house. I let it rot. Instead, I poured concrete and steel right where that dining room table once sat. The monument wasn't tall. It wasn't fancy. It was solid. Unbreakable. Just like I had become. On it I carved the names of every dreamer they tried to crush. Mary Alice Holloway, mother. Fighter. Dreamer. Billy Ray Holloway. Ran to the circus chasing freedom. Ruth Ann Holloway, bookseller. Rebel. And lastly, Martha Jane Holloway, architect. Survivor. Legacy.
No titles. No dates.
Just the truth. They came once. The last of the Holloways. Cousins I barely knew. Descendants of the men who laughed at me. They drove up in dusty trucks, wearing their Sunday best like it could cover up decades of bitterness. They stood around the monument, not speaking. No one looked me in the eye. One by one they left. Dust and silence trailing behind them. I stood alone. For the first time in my life I felt free. After they left, I thought that would be the end of it. But small towns don't let go of grudges easily. And Cedar Ridge was the kind of place that remembered everything, even the things they pretended to forget. It started with the first letter. No return address. Just a dirty envelope shoved under the door of the old caretaker's shed where I was living while overseeing the monument. Inside was a piece of lined notebook paper. Crude handwriting, probably from someone too old to text but too bitter to leave it alone. Go back to where you belong. The land don't need you. You're no Holloway.
No signature. No Kerry.
I laughed at first. Tossed it in the fire pit outside. But the second letter wasn't as easy to ignore. You think you won, but you just woke up snakes you can't kill. That one chilled me. Because I knew exactly what it meant. The old Holloway alliances, the ones built in dark bars and backroom deals, weren't dead after all. Some of the descendants still believed the land was theirs by blood, even if they had drunk and gambled it away. They didn't care about law. They cared about pride. They wanted the land back. And they didn't want me, the girl they once laughed at, sitting on it. The next few weeks, little things kept happening. One morning I woke up and found dead crows strung up on the old porch beams. Another night, I heard tires crunching slow over the gravel, stopping just beyond the tree line.
No headlights. No voices.
Just watching. I slept with a loaded shotgun by my side. Same old pump-action Remington my mother kept under her bed. I didn't call the sheriff. In towns like Cedar Ridge, the law had long memories too. I knew better than to expect help. Still I stayed. Every morning I worked on the monument. Adding pathways. Planting wildflowers. I made it a place of memory, of defiance. Something bigger than the rust and hate trying to swallow it. But the threats didn't stop. They only got worse. One evening I found spray paint slashed across the front of the monument. Holloways don't quit. You did. That one hit harder than the rest. Because deep down, I knew it was true in their twisted way. I had quit them. I had walked away. But I hadn't quit myself. And I sure as hell wasn't quitting now. That night, I sat by the fire pit outside the caretaker's shed, the shotgun across my lap, the flames crackling low. I thought about Mama's letter, the one she slipped me the night I ran away. I had kept it all these years, folded and worn thin. I opened it now, hands rough and shaking from age but steady in spirit. Her handwriting delicate and careful. If you ever feel like giving up, remember. The ones who build are always hated by the ones who destroy. But builders leave something behind. Destroyers leave nothing but ashes. I sat there for a long time, letting her words settle into my bones. They would not scare me off this time. I wasn't a girl anymore. I wasn't running anymore. The next morning I drove into town. I walked into the hardware store, the diner, the feed shop, everywhere the old families still gathered, swapping gossip and poison. I let them all see me. I let them all see that I wasn't afraid. Then I did the one thing no one expected. I invited the town to a gathering at the monument. A dedication ceremony. The invite was simple. In honor of those who dared to dream beyond the fences set for them. All welcome. All remembered. I posted it everywhere. Church boards, post office walls, the windows of the gas station. No one could pretend they didn't know. The morning of the dedication, a storm rolled in. Gray clouds heavy with rain. Thunder low and grumbling like an angry god. I set up folding chairs anyway. I set out a table with coffee and donuts. I stood by the monument alone. And I waited. First came the curious ones. The old men from the diner, shuffling up with their coffee-stained ball caps. Then came the angry ones. Grandsons of the drunk uncles, faces twisted with old hate. And then came the quiet ones. The women. The tired ones. The ones who had dreams once too but never got to chase them. I saw it in their eyes. They remembered what it meant to hope. I stepped up onto a small wooden box beside the monument.
No microphone. No speeches.
Just my voice, cracked and real. I was told once that I wasn't the kind you follow, that I was the kind you marry off and forget. But I didn't forget myself. And now neither will this land. I pointed to the monument behind me. These names aren't just Holloways. They're everyone who ever dared to want more. Everyone who ever fought to be more. The crowd shifted. Some embarrassed. Some angry. Some thoughtful. I let the silence stretch. Then I stepped down. The rain started to fall. Soft at first, then harder. The crowd broke up. Some left without a word. Some lingered. No one touched the monument. No one dared. That night, as the rain poured down, I stood at the monument, soaked to the skin, feeling the cold seep into my bones. And I smiled. Not because I had beaten them, but because I had outlived their hate. Because even if they burned the monument to the ground, it didn't matter. The real monument was me. It always had been. I thought the dedication would settle things. I was wrong. A week after the storm, the real fight began. It started small. Someone cut the power lines to the caretaker shed. I woke up cold and in the dark. No lights, no heat. 2 days later, the tires on my truck were slashed. All 4. Deep, careful cuts. The kind that said they wanted me stuck, not just inconvenienced. No notes this time. Just actions. They didn't want me scared anymore. They wanted me gone. I hired a young man from the next county, over someone with no ties to Cedar Ridge, to help with repairs around the land. His name was Luis. Good worker. Quiet. Loyal. We put up cameras. Real ones and fake ones. I didn't bother hiding them. Let them know they were being watched now. For a little while things went quiet again. But hate doesn't rest. Especially not the kind soaked deep into the dirt for generations. One night, just after midnight, I woke to the smell of smoke. I grabbed the shotgun and stumbled outside. Heart pounding so hard I couldn't hear anything else. The fire wasn't near the shed. It was near the monument. The grass was burning. The wildflowers I had planted, the pathways. Flames crackling low but fast. Eating up the memories I had tried to build. I ran barefoot, slapping out small fires with a wet burlap sack. Coughing, choking on the smoke. Luis came roaring up the gravel in his old Chevy, half-dressed, wielding a fire extinguisher. Together we beat the fire back. The monument stood, blackened at the base. Scorched around the edges, but still standing, solid, unbreakable, just like it was meant to be. The next morning the sheriff finally showed up. Sheriff Macklin, a Holloway cousin from way back. He stood there, squinting at the burned grass, chewing the same kind of dead cigar my grandfather used to love. He didn't take notes. He didn't even pretend to care. Hard to prove arson, he said, scratching his gut. Could have been lightning. Could have been anything. There hadn't been lightning that night. We both knew it. He tipped his hat and walked away without another word. I wasn't stupid. I knew what they wanted. They couldn't scare me off with letters or crows. They couldn't shame me with words. Now they were trying to bury me in ashes. But they didn't understand something. I had already lived through worse. And I had been waiting for this fight for 70 years. The next few days Luis and I rebuilt. We planted new flowers. We scrubbed the soot from the stone as best we could. We repaired the paths. And while we worked, word got around that I wasn't leaving. Word got around that the monument had survived the fire. Word got around that Martha Jane Holloway, the girl who was supposed to marry off and disappear, wasn't just alive, she was fighting back. And something strange started happening. First it was small. An old woman, I think her name was Clarice Womack, left a fresh bouquet of daisies at the foot of the monument. A man I didn't recognize stopped by with a bag of cement and left it by the path. Little gifts. Little signs. Signs that maybe, just maybe, not everyone in Cedar Ridge was against me. Some of them remembered their own dreams too. Dreams they had buried under years of silence. But the ones who hated me, the ones who wanted me gone, weren't done yet. They were planning something bigger. Something worse. And this time they weren't going to hide in the shadows. This time they were going to come for me directly. Face to face. No more notes. No more warnings. Real war was coming. And I was ready for it. It happened 3 nights later. I was sitting by the fire pit again, shotgun across my lap, watching the woods where the shadows moved wrong. Luis had gone home hours ago. I told him not to stay late anymore. I didn't want him caught in the middle of what I knew was coming. The moon was thin and mean, barely giving enough light to see the edges of the trees. That's when I heard it. Boots crunching in the gravel. Voices. Low. Angry. Full of hate. I stood up slow, shotgun loose but ready in my hands. 5 men stepped out of the darkness. I recognized a few. Bobby Lane, one of my second cousins, half drunk as usual. 2 more were McCormick's old family tied to the Holloways by bad blood and worse marriages. The other 2 were strangers, but they wore the same look. Men who thought the land was theirs by right of being born breathing. They stopped a few yards away, under the oak tree where my grandfather used to hang deer for skinning. Bobby spat in the dirt and pointed at me. "You don't belong here, old woman," he slurred. "This land don't belong to you. It belongs to us." I didn't flinch. "It belonged to the dreamers," I said, voice steady. "You sold your piece of it long ago for a bottle and a fight. It's not yours anymore." One of the McCormicks stepped forward. Heavy set, his fists clenched. "You gonna leave quiet, or we gotta make you?" he asked. I lifted the shotgun just enough for them to see it plain. "You make a move," I said, "and I'll make sure the last thing you ever see is this land you love so much." For a moment none of them moved. The wind kicked up, cold and mean, scattering ash from the fire pit into the air. Then Bobby laughed. A short, ugly sound. "You ain't gonna shoot nobody," he said. "You're Holloway blood. Same as us. You ain't got the guts." I didn't say a word. I just cocked the shotgun. The sound snapped through the air like a whip. They hesitated. Bobby cursed under his breath, stepped back. But not enough. Not far enough. It wasn't me who ended it. It was Luis. He came roaring up the driveway in his beat-up truck, headlights blinding, engine screaming. He jumped out, no weapon, no threats, just pure fury. "This land belongs to her," he shouted, voice cutting the night. "She fought for it. You lost it drunk at the bar." Bobby turned toward him, fists up, stumbling with the weight of cheap whiskey and worse pride. I didn't give him a chance. I fired into the air. The blast shattered the night. Everyone froze. Even Luis. Even me. The smoke curled from the barrel of my shotgun like a slow warning snake. "Next one goes through your leg," I said. "Or your gut." They believed me. This time they believed. One by one they backed away. Bobby was the last. His eyes full of something like fear but mostly hate. He spat at my feet and turned into the night. The others followed. The darkness swallowed them whole. When it was over, I sat back down by the fire pit, shaking harder than I wanted to show.
Luis sat beside me.
For a long time we didn't say anything. Just watched the fire die down to red coals. Finally he said, "You okay?" I laughed once, bitter and sharp. "No," I said. "But I'm still here." The sheriff came the next morning. He said he got reports of gunfire. I told him the truth. I defended my land. He nodded like he didn't care one way or the other. "Just keep it clean," he said. We don't need no bodies. I smiled at that. A cold, tired smile. No bodies, I said. Not unless they come looking for one. He didn't answer. He just tipped his hat and drove away. A month passed. The land grew quiet again. The flowers came back stubborn and bright. People started visiting the monument, leaving notes. Flowers. Little rocks stacked in silent tribute. Stories spread. About the old woman who came home to claim what was hers. About the men who tried to scare her off and failed. About the shotgun and the fire in the fight. But I wasn't innocent either. I had made mistakes. I let anger turn me hard. I let pride chain me to a place that had never loved me. I had stood my ground. But at what cost? I spent most days alone walking the fields, touching the monument, whispering the names out loud like prayers. Some nights I cried. Some nights I didn't. Some nights I just listened to the wind, carrying all the voices of the Holloways who had never gotten out. I had won, but I had also lost. I had become the kind of Holloway I swore I never would be, stubborn, bitter, chained to land instead of living beyond it. In the end I stayed. I stayed because it was mine. Because dreams, even scorched and broken, were still better than living on my knees. Because someone had to remember. Someone had to matter. And if that someone was me, the girl they thought they could marry off and forget, then so be it. Let them tell that story too.